Hello everyone, I'm very excited today because I have compiled a very extensive video how to check the fuel pressure on a petrol engine. It's a 2nz 1.3 liter Toyota Corolla engine. So let's start the video. This is an overview of the fuel pressure gauge. So this is the fuel gauge dial. The units are in megapascals. To convert megapascals to pounds per square inch, you have to multiply the readings with 145 to get the reading in PSI. This is the lower end of the fuel gauge, which comes fitted with a connector. It is fitted in the engine compartment. The wider, bigger end is connected to the fuel inlet or delivery pipe coming from the fuel tank, whereas the narrower and the smaller end is connected to the already installed factory installed pre-fitted fuel tube connector inside the engine compartment. Before checking fuel pressure on any car, it's very handy to have various sizes of push type quick connect fuel line fittings and various sizes of couplers and rubber pipes so that the procedure can be performed hassle-free. So this is the inside view of the push type quick connector on the fuel gauge. So before connecting the fuel pressure gauge, it is very important to relieve the fuel pressure from the fuel lines. This is done by disconnecting the fuel pump connector, cranking the engine for a few seconds, and then disconnecting the negative terminal cable from the battery. By this way, the fuel system is depressurized. The first step in relieving the fuel pressure is to remove the rear cushion seat. Then remove the fuel tank cap. After removing the rear cushion seat, the next step is to open the floor service hole cover and disconnect the common fuel gauge and fuel pump connector as shown with the red arrow. This connector is located on top of the fuel pump assembly. So after relieving the fuel pressure, remove the plastic fuel pipe clamp cover carefully. It is located inside the engine compartment and it is the site from where we will connect the fuel gauge in the fuel line. So carefully remove the plastic cover. After removing the plastic cover, disconnect the quick type fuel connector by pressing on the plastic tabs and pull the fuel connector from the metal fuel pipe. In case you are having difficulty in pressing the tabs on the quick type fuel connector and you are unable to release the quick type fuel connector from the fuel pipe, I have made a special tool myself, and one can use this tool to press the plastic tabs on the quick type fuel connector and release it from the fuel pipe. Okay, now it's time to connect the fuel gauge. This is the fuel gauge, as you can see, and this is the lower end of the fuel gauge. It has a wide end, a broad end, and a narrow end. So the broad end connects directly into the metal fuel line, which is the fuel delivery pipe, and the narrow end connects directly into the pre-fitted, pre-installed quick type fuel connector. So the narrow end goes directly into the fuel connector. Okay guys, so I've connected the fuel pressure gauge in the fuel line. I have reconnected the fuel pump and fuel gauge connector in the fuel tank. At the moment the fuel pressure gauge is giving a 0 reading because I had previously depressurized the fuel lines by cranking the engine several times after disconnecting the fuel pump. Now the fuel pressure is giving a 0 reading simply because I haven't yet cranked the engine. I haven't activated the fuel pump again. I've just simply turned on the ignition, but I haven't started the engine yet, so it will be a 0 reading. Okay, so I have started the engine, and the moment I have started the engine, you can see the needle has gone up rapidly. It's gone up to 0.3 megapascals. Now this reading is 47.1 psi when you convert megapascals into psi. This reading is being recorded with the engine running at idle, and there are no extra load on the engine. All the accessories are off, and the reading is within specifications. It should be between 44 and 50 psi. So this is a steady and constant needle at idle, which is normal. Okay, now I will add load on the engine. I will turn on the air conditioning. Air conditioning has turned on. You can hear a click. The fuel pressure is maintained very well, as shown by a steady needle around 0.3 megapascals or 47 psi. So even with a heavy load on the engine, the fuel pressure is maintained in its normal specifications. Okay, now I will turn off the engine. As you can see, the moment I turned off the engine, there is a slight drop in the needle, but the needle now is again steady and stable. Now I will be checking and performing the 5-minute fuel pressure hold test, which means that the fuel line should hold the fuel pressure for at least 5 minutes, and the fuel pressure should remain above the minimum specifications, which is 21 psi for this 1.3 liter 2nz-fe Corolla engine. The 5-minute fuel pressure hold test is meant to detect if there is a fault in the check valve in the fuel pump, or if there is a leaky fuel injector, fuel lines or fuel fittings, or if the fuel pressure regulator is defective. In all these circumstances, gradually the fuel pressure will start coming down, and the fuel pressure will not hold the pressure in the fuel lines. Okay, almost 5 minutes have elapsed, and you can see that the reading is 0.29 megapascals or 42 psi, which is well above the minimum specifications of 21 psi. And this means that the check valve in the fuel pump, the fuel pressure regulator, is working normally, and there are no leaks in the fuel injectors or the fuel lines or fuel pipes and fittings. So now I'm checking the fuel pressure at 20 minutes since I turned off the engine. The abnormal reading is considered if the pressure falls more than 20 psi from the reading that where the engine was running, or on this gauge the fuel pressure should be reading more than 0.1 megapascal. So this is normal. At the end, before disconnecting, must depressurize the fuel lines as described before removing the fuel gauge from the fuel lines. So I hope you learned how to check the fuel pressure, what is the normal fuel pressure reading, and how to detect faults using the fuel gauge in the fuel lines. Thank you for watching the video, and please do subscribe my channel.